And then I said to them, if this video gets 30,000 likes, I'll make another Barbie video. And the funniest part of all, the video got 30,000 likes. So I hear you guys liked my Barbie video and now want me to spend the rest of my life reviewing Barbie movies. Because yeah, sure, there are 37 of them at this moment, but they're still making them. You guys want me sat here at like 80 years old reviewing the new movie where the Barbie doll falls in love with the prince, because oh my god, it's almost as if that's what happens in every single one of them. I see your comments going like, Seamus, you just don't understand these movies. I just made a valid point, but I hear ya. I'm the world's leading expert on the Disney sequels. I was officially awarded that title last year, but the Barbie movies, that's not my terrain. Yet. But here's the plan. We find the world's leading expert on the Barbie movies, which is, let me quickly just, Kate loves Disney. More like, Kate loves Barbie. We gain her trust. You're like the expert at this, right?
Sure.
So like when I'm the expert on the Disney sequels, that's what you are to the Barbie movies, as far as I'm concerned.
I'll take that crown.
So yeah, I'm not going to try and steal that crown off you. She doesn't suspect me one bit. And finally, I make her teach me everything she knows about the Barbie movies.
See, it's hard because I feel like one of the main things about these movies is just nostalgia. Like,
yeah.
I feel like in the Barbie fandom, like, we all know that they're not the best, like, cinematic masterpieces, even though we all like to joke and say that they are. They're definitely more like, I feel like for the older fans, it's definitely more about just a comfort thing.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, that's my childhood. Because they were just such a big phenomenon back then. I think just remember that these movies were made to sell dolls. So you know how like all of the titles say like Barbie as the Nutcracker or Barbie in Swan Lake? So that is because Barbie is an actor. So she is playing all of these characters in these movies. And so like the Nutcracker was her first starring role. The Nutcracker.
There's this whole world of movies that I just have no idea about, and I love this idea of just exploring them. And
I love that you're so open to it.
And would you look at that? The title is mine. Sorry, this was a long-winded intro, even for myself. Also, I'm sorry, Kate, when I interviewed you, this was not my plan to actually claim the title of the world's leading expert on this got lost in the edit. Anyway, today I'm going to be talking about what us Barbie fans like to refer to as the Barbie movie's original trilogy. It's kind of similar to the Star Wars original trilogy, except also nothing like that.
I have a good feeling about this.
So close. Anywho, to start, we're going to be talking about Barbie in the Nutcracker, where Barbie gets given a nutcracker and goes on an adventure to Parthenia. Now, just to preface this, all of these films from Barbie and the Nutcracker to Barbie of Swan Lake have the exact same premise, being that this young girl can't do something. In this case, she can't do the Nutcracker ballet dance thing. And Barbie, as in this Barbie doll character who I think is the actual Barbie, like there's a whole lot of Barbie universe lore where she's actually an actress playing a character in some of these movies, but that doesn't get explained in this nor any of the movies I'm covering today. But when this becomes like a fully fleshed out series, we'll probably have to get into that. Sits her down to tell her a story about a different Barbie doll character who isn't called Barbie but does just so happen to look like the Barbie doll character telling the story and all the other Barbies in all the other movies, and how she was struggling with a completely different problem, all things considered, but she overcame it while meeting the prince who is also the exact same character in all these movies. And then, after apparently sitting down to listen to this story for an hour, the little girl was so impressed by the bravery and wits of the Barbie doll in the story and suddenly is able to do said thing that she wasn't able to do before. Does that make sense? I hope it did, because quite frankly, that is the only part of this movie that actually did make sense to me. You know, just as someone who's never owned a Barbie doll before, and the extent of my knowledge about the Nutcracker is dun 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 dun. I don't feel like this movie was made with me in mind. But it was also kind of a Toy Story movie, and I'm not kidding this time, so I guess I'm contractually obliged to say it was perfect. Basically, we've got this Barbie called Clara, whose grandfather makes her stay at home and isn't allowed to do anything, which kind of just sounds like everyone right now, but we've got to feel sorry for her because she dreams of adventure. Also, kind of like everyone, but you know, sometimes there are global pandemics and the right thing to do is stay inside for your grandfather, Clara. And she finally lives her dream when her aunt comes over for Christmas and gives her a Nutcracker doll. Which, just as a setup for a film, I wasn't too enthralled. But unbeknownst to me and Clara, she was actually living in a sentient magic toy universe the entire time. And as the clock strikes midnight, everything comes to life. I mean, I say unbeknownst to her, but earlier in the film when her brother kind of breaks the Nutcracker doll, she starts apologizing to it.
I'm sure he didn't mean to hurt you.
Which I can't be alone in thinking, this is a really weird scene to throw in the film when we don't know the toy can come to life yet. Like, surely you want to build the suspense about that before you reveal. But no, just make her apologize to a block of wood. Either way, when the clock strikes midnight, all these mice come powering into the house like soldiers too. Well, I'm not actually sure what they want to do, but they're menacing. So the Nutcracker comes to life to fight them. Clara wakes up and one of the mice uses a magic staff to shrink her to their size, which means we've got a literal Barbie doll and a Nutcracker fighting off a bunch of mice. This is a Toy Story movie. A really weird Toy Story movie at that. Like, one of the problems I had in my last Barbie video is that the whole movie felt like an overly long video game cutscene. The character movements weren't natural enough for the action scenes to really work. And on top of that, it's so slowly paced, even the conversations feel off because characters take 3-second breaks in between speaking. And now, imagine all of those problems, but with a fight scene. Ooh, I'm a scary mouse with a magic staff. You aren't have the same size as me. I sure hope you're scared. Ow. Oh no, I don't have my sword anymore. I guess I'm screwed. Wait, I will climb away and I'm gonna get really lucky because I bet it will take you at least, I don't know, 10 seconds to completely miss your shot at striking me down. Anyway, so long story short, Claire and the Nutcracker just about avoided that attack. And now they have to head to Parthenia to find the Sugar Plum Princess, who is apparently the only one that can reverse this spell that turned her into a literal Barbie doll and him into this Nutcracker. And honestly, upon saying that sentence, I'm reminded of my regret for not doing better at school and pursuing YouTube as a career. Because I was genuinely thinking, where does the ballet come into this? And it doesn't, to be honest with you. We meet some snow fairies who do some ballet around them for like 2 minutes and no one says anything, and I'm not sure if it means anything either, but that's pretty much all the ballet until the very end of the film. Then they get to Parthenia, which is animated like a drawing that doesn't even remotely blend in with the rest of the characters, and it's ruled by the Mouse King, who allegedly took the throne from the last king, and Prince Eric, who was meant to be the next king, just kind of disappeared, and no one knows what happened to him. Do you guys have any idea who Prince Eric might be? Because I'm completely clueless. There's been no clues whatsoever about who could possibly be Prince Eric.
But inside beats the heart of a prince.
But shh, it's a secret. We're not supposed to know that yet. Anyway, there's also this bat who's the Mouse King's second-in-command / spy, and he just manages to be everywhere at all times. We'll get into that more later. But when the Nutcracker and Clara arrive in Parthenia, overly loudly discussing their plans to find the Sugar Plum Princess, he overhears it and reports back to the Mouse King so he can send a rock giant off to kill them. But first, we've got to have that little scene where the prince and the princess, the Barbie doll and the Nutcracker fall in love. So these dancing fairies show up again, which I guess brings the ballet theme back into the fold, and they start producing all sorts of flowers and plants, which fits up with the fairy lore from the Tinkerbell movies that I'm worryingly familiar with. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if I'm on some government list somewhere from making these videos. And this ends up being the first and only scene in any of these movies where the Barbie doll character falls in love with someone that doesn't look, well, exactly like this. I mean, he does end up looking like this, but for this moment in time, he is made of wood. Which, I'm not gonna judge, but Anyway, let's get back to the rock giant, because we get a proper chase scene, and just as it looks like they're never gonna be able to get away, they're all gonna die, the Nutcracker makes the ultimate sacrifice and stands up to him 1v1, only to break the ice and manage to sink the rock giant. Well, they get away. And honestly, one of the best animated sequences I've ever seen in my life. On a genuine note, getting from this to the rock giants in Frozen 2 within the space of 18 years is actually an extremely impressive feat for animation, but also in the instances of the bat being everywhere, witnessed this happening, flew back to report the events to the Mouse King, and then quite literally the following scene when the Nutcracker and the rest of the people they're with, they kind of set up a fellowship to find the Sugar Plum Princess, but trust me, the other characters aren't important in the slightest. And they arrive at this palace, which is where the Sugar Plum Princess should be, but it was all a trap, and is that a similarity to the original Star Wars trilogy? Either way, this is where my belief starts to get stretched. Like, I can get my head around mice kings with magic staffs and nature-changing fairies, but somehow, the bat was the one that laid this trap, all in the meantime from telling the Mouse King about this rock giant's failure, and is also finally there to witness the fairies telling the rest of the villagers about what's happened. And I find this scene so funny because for some reason, one of the children takes the lead, so I guess he's in charge?
It's time we stood up to the mouse.
I mean, I'm all for the younger generation speaking up and leading the way, but just felt a bit off. And my point is, the bat going from here to here to here in just over 5 minutes is beyond belief. Like, it's as if the film's really slow-paced, unless it actually should be to flesh something out, and then it flies by. Also, I didn't mention this, but Barbie didn't get caught with the rest of the fellowship for some reason. She didn't feel like going into the palace, I think. I mean, how else was the story about her showing bravery and cunning to save everyone else by herself meant to go ahead if she got captured with the rest of them? And then, in typical Barbie movie fashion, Clara, who's now set out to break her friends out the prison, tricks a bunch of mice guards into letting her into their cell, and then almost immediately works out that they're being kept behind an invisible and soundproof wall before she saves them. And it's following this prison break, Prince Eric finally stands up to the Mouse King, lecturing him about how to be a good king, and the Mouse King responds by turning the villagers into stone, which I've got to say, it's a good response. He doesn't care about being a good king. He's a tyrant, and he's owning it, and beats the Nutcracker to the ground until Clara stands up to the Mouse King, and just as he's about to use magic to make her even smaller, which, I mean, she's already a Barbie doll, so if it's he's basically turning into a thumbtack. The Nutcracker pulls the classic magic-deflecting sword trick, and the mouse gets shrunk, and to be honest, I don't know why they're still going on about this, like, shrinking thing. Like, Clara got shrunk and then just travels to a world where everything's to scale, so there was no point in her being small. I don't get it. Can someone actually explain this to me? Even when she goes back later, they don't do a spell to make her big again. It doesn't make sense. She also confesses her love to the Nutcracker now, even though he's made of wood, and even he gets that.
I'm just wood.
She still kisses him, and that's what turns him back into a human, because she was the sugar plum princess all along, and also suddenly a flawless ballet dancer, because remember how this was all about a girl not being able to do a ballet dance? They wrapped it around and tied it all together. Kind of. Only for the mouse to then come back with the bat, open up her locket, which sends her back home, and then she wakes up, which... Was this an unironic "it was all a dream" movie? Because the event started while she was asleep, but no, apparently Eric then shows up at her house, also human-sized now, on Christmas Day, and the moral of the story is that if you aren't brave, you might not become a princess. You think I'm joking, but no, they actually say that line.
So, if Clara hadn't been brave, she never would have found out she was a princess.
All in all, this film wasn't that bad. I mean, more than anything, it made me respect The Princess and the Pauper, because I preferred that to this, and I didn't hate this. So I'm sorry if I was a bit too harsh on The Princess and the Pauper in my last video. I didn't think I was going to be making a sequel and have to kind of retroactively take some things back. But, you know, I did like the message of this film too. Overthrow tyrants, I can get behind that. And while I did catch on to the twists and big reveals before they happened, at least they were trying to do something. And with that, let's get into the next one, Barbie as Rapunzel. So we got the classic little girl doesn't know what to paint. She seems a bit burnt out, all things considered, which I relate. Do you ever feel like you're just making the same video over and over again for the last year, and because you can't go out and do anything fun, you're just in a never-ending cycle? When will it end? I ask myself all the time. Fortunately for this girl though, she has Barbie there to sit her down and tell her a story about another girl whose painting saved her life. And from there we've got the basic premise of Rapunzel, you know, girl with kind of long hair, but it's plaited so it looks shorter naturally, locked up in a tower and friends with a talking rabbit and Spyro, I think? To be honest, I joke, but this was actually the only Barbie movie where I liked the animal side characters. They didn't have their own story going on as much as some of the other ones. They were just there for comic relief. And while it wasn't exactly my sense of humor, I could see the entertainment value there. But even with that said, I am still planning on calling this character Spyro for the rest of the video because They haven't earned the right for me to say their actual name. And also, on the contrary to the Nutcracker and Swan Lake, I'm actually familiar with the story of Rapunzel and a big fan of Disney's Tangled, which admittedly might have tilted things in favor of this one, but this was my favorite Barbie movie so far because the characters weren't one-dimensional, and this starts with Mother Gothel, who at first is just set up to be unnecessarily mean. I really liked how she was done in Tangled, where they explain her motivations, and that's what's carrying the story right from the start. And I was nervous at the beginning of this that they weren't really going to bother to flesh her out. Then I was surprised when they actually decided to go down a route of a more mysterious character whose motivations were a lot more ambiguous. I mean, they still left glaring flaws in her plan, like how she just decided to leave this secret room revealing the truth about Rapunzel's parents right there, kind of waiting to be found. I'd have thought you'd want to get rid of that condemning evidence, all things considered, but okay, we'll just go with it. And this room just so happens to double up as a secret passageway out of the castle grounds, which is where Rapunzel meets this guy. Do you recognize him? They don't tell you who he is, but if you have any ideas, let me know in the comments down below. I'm really interested to know who you think this guy is. Okay, I'm not actually, just comment because it boosts my video in the algorithm and that would be a nice thing to do. That's all. Oh, by the way, here's the prince, and I just have to show you how they bring this up because it's like they couldn't think of a natural way to bring it up in conversation, and let me play you the clip.
Stefan?
Yes?
Nothing. I'm just glad you're my brother.
Like, you really just shoehorned that into the script, didn't you? It's like, oh wait, your name, come back. But yeah, Rapunzel saves his sister from falling for a trap in the ground that's just there with no explanation, and he's grateful for what Rapunzel did. So they get to chatting and he just decides to fill her in with the lore about their kingdom. Like, he explains why he thinks they need to go to war with their neighboring kingdom, which obviously Rapunzel and us, the audience, don't know about that and need to be filled in with it, but who does he think she is? Like, surely she's got to be from one of the kingdoms for her to be in this specific spot. Like, why does she need filling in it? You know, doesn't matter. He's grateful and they're in love now. And honestly, that could have been that. Rapunzel had a fun day out, fell in love with the prince and everything, but she was still planning on going back to Mother Gothel. Like, she's got herself a loyal captive right there. But really unluckily, Mother Gothel's pet ferret was also just there and saw this happening, because you know how villain's pet servant is always everywhere? It's just basic Barbie movie lore. And therefore, upon finding this out, uses her evil witch magic to destroy Rapunzel's artwork and painting supplies, stretching out her room into a tower, which is gonna come in handy once the prince needs her to let down her hair. Except I was really disappointed to find out that isn't actually said in this film beyond a dream sequence which Mother Gothel controlled. Also, again, one of the best animated sequences I've ever seen in my life. And it's then we get into how painting saved her life, because she somehow magics the hairbrush her parents left her into a paintbrush, because, you know, magic exists in this universe, so nothing's off the table. And this magic paintbrush basically works so that you just have to think of something and it will start appearing where you're painting it, while also being a portal to said place. And it's at this point, if I was the little girl, I would stop Barbie from telling the story, because what does this have anything to do with anything? But she doesn't, and the story continues with Rapunzel painting the place she met the prince the other day, and yeah, the prince is right there when she walks through it. They have a standard day of bonding in town together to establish their relationship together, I guess. He invites her to the royal ball as she continues to learn about this divide between the two kingdoms, and oh my god, I wonder how this film's going to end. Do you think they're going to realize they were fighting over nothing and make up? And I know I'm making fun of it again, but it's actually alluded to around here that Mother Gothel seems to be orchestrating this entire war for some reason, and it's a good bit of mystery around her character because we have no idea why she's doing this or what she wants. Like, why do you even have Rapunzel? So anyway, Rapunzel returns back to her tower by painting a portal to her room into a random castle door because she doesn't want Mother Gothel to hurt her friends. And since she's just about to go to a ball, we get the obligatory 2 minutes of her trying on dresses for this ball by painting them onto herself. Oh, I do hope they make toys out of each and every one of these outfits. I must have them all. But just before she leaves, Mother Gothel discovers what she's up to, destroying her magic paintbrush, closing the portal, and finally casting a spell on the tower to make it so she can never leave. And then finally, she disguises herself as Rapunzel and heads off to the ball in her place, which I know is a bit cliche, but honestly, I'm okay with it. This is about as good a villain as you can get in one of these films. I mean, when she tries to kill the prince and he does the classic pick up a nearby object and deflect the magic onto her, it doesn't even work. She flicks it away. At this stage, I think they should have just let her win, but there was actually a bit of a loophole with the spell she put on the tower.
Never release your prisoner with a lying heart.
meaning Rapunzel can actually get away pretty easily because she never lied, and Spyro flies her off to the ball. In the meantime, the prince and his siblings, which he has a lot of, manage to trap Mother Gothel under a banner that they knock down. And remember, in a Barbie movie, if you put some cloth on top of someone, they are permanently stuck. Again, basic Barbie movie law. And then finally, as the other king from that other kingdom shows up to lay siege on the kingdom on that specific day, for whatever reason, Mother Gothel reveals to us that she was in love with the other king, but when he didn't reciprocate that, stole his child, Rapunzel, who she thought was meant to be her child, and then the other kingdom got blamed for the kidnapping of the child, and the whole war was based on a lie. So a big fight breaks out between Mother Gothel and everyone else, and in what I consider to be a very clever ending, as Rapunzel running away tricks Mother Gothel into running through the portal she'd painted onto a castle door earlier, permanently imprisoning her in the tower because of her own spell to never release the prisoner with a lying heart. And I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot about the portal they painted on the castle door, and they not only brought it back, which surprised me, but there was an actual setup and a payoff. Like, that's actually good storytelling. I wasn't expecting that. However, I don't want to completely nitpick, but I can never look past how much they rush weddings in these films. Like, these two people just met, so...
It wasn't long before the magical day came.
I have mixed opinions on the ending. One more to go. Barbie of Swan Lake. Now, in this one, Barbie is a camp leader? And the girl can't sleep. I don't know why I'm explaining this to you. You got the point 2 movies ago. So the Barbie in this story is called Adette. She works at a bakery and is good at dancing. That's pretty much all you need to know about her character, except forget the thing about the bakery and the dancing. That's not really that important. We've also got the prince, and I actually want to talk about his introduction scene because I don't know if the person who animated this got the memo about how these films work, but they went all out using these different angle shots and what looks like a moving camera animation. Have they been capable of this the entire time and just aren't trying? Like, I'd feel hard done by if I'd made this scene and then saw the rest of the film look like this. By the way, enough sympathy for an unknown animator because this story is the weirdest one of the lot. As the events are set into motion when a unicorn shows up in the town that Adette lives in. So naturally the evil men in town all want to capture it, but this unicorn's shown to be a pretty smart creature through this clever maneuver where it cuts the rope it was caught on and then loses all intelligence over the next minute as it runs away while managing to simultaneously get caught on this rope by its own accord 3 times. Fortunately, Adette was the only one to follow it into this enchanted forest and freeze it, which according to the goddess woman, queen, creature appearing to her, because she picked this specific crystal from the tree to save the unicorn, she's now the chosen one to save them from an evil birdman. Like, you know how that happens sometimes? You're just getting about your day, you do a good deed and suddenly become the centerpiece to a prophecy? It happens, I think. And it's at a moment like this, some might forget that this is all a story being told to a girl who's at camp and can't get to sleep. But I feel the need to remind you of this because while Adette's being told about this prophecy, we get a flashback scene about how the evil birdman Rothbart turned to the dark arts, or something I know, which means we're watching a story within a story. That isn't actually that crazy, I just wanted to point it out. So Adette, as you may expect, says no. She doesn't really want to get involved in all this, heading home. And with that, the story's pretty much done. I mean, it isn't a happy ending, but it should have done its job by getting the girl to want to go to sleep. I know I did, and I haven't even made fun of the fact the entire film's purpose is to make a girl go to sleep. Like, that's not a good thing, surely. Either way, it's what happens next that really confuses me, because the evil birdman Rothbart attacks Adette, which is confusing because she literally said no to helping take you down. She might as well be on your side, but oh, you just had to turn her into a swan. And alongside having the most underwhelming reaction to this of all time, now she has something against you and a reason to want to outtake you down. I'm sorry, it's just going from Mother Gothel in the last film to this is like going from February 2020 to March 2020. Remember that? Or is that too long ago now? Like, have you just lost all concept of time as well? Anyway, Adette goes back to the goddess, woman, queen, creature, who gives her this crown to protect her from Rothbart, which, you know, would have been helpful like a couple minutes earlier when he turned her into a swan, but I guess the story couldn't have gone forward if she'd given it to her then. And she also does a little bit of a spell on her so she's not permanently stuck, meaning she's a swan by day, human by night. So she's kind of like a backwards Princess Fiona, except with a swan rather than an ogre. Otherwise, it's the same thing. So obviously she wants to reverse this curse and help out the other animals, I guess. I mean, she didn't want to until it was affecting her directly, but now she wants to help out the other animals. And sets out on a quest to find the Book of Forest Lore, which by that I mean they go to a library. And I've got to say, this is a really weird scene because they spend a few minutes looking for this book that they show to us at the start of the scene is just on the table. Like, you either don't say where the book is or you don't spend ages not finding it. I know they just needed a reason for enough time to pass for Odette to turn back into a swan, but it's bad storytelling, I'm sorry. They literally leave the library without finding a book that's on the table. This was all a waste of time. But now, because Odette's a swan again, Rothbart, who she's protected from, realizes he can trick another human into killing her, even though it's definitely illegal to kill swans. I guess this doesn't take place in Britain, but still, it doesn't sit right with me. And that's what brings the prince back into the story, as he casually wanders into the enchanted woods, and just as he's about to shoot Odette, he falls in love with her beauty while she's a swan. So just to recap, we've had one girl fall in love with a literal block of wood, and now we've had a prince fall in love with a bird. An actual bird. I mean, I've got to apologize. I claimed at the start of this video all these films were the same, where Barbie meets and falls in love with the prince, but they really did break the mold and experiment in these early days, didn't they? Except then she changes back and they have a falling in love montage, chalking this up to be the third time today I've seen these two character models fall in love. Let's move on, because the trolls found the book, and I'll give you a quick rundown. If two people are in love, the power of their love can break the curse. But if one of the lovers declares their love to someone else, they will remain cursed forever. Which is important and convenient, because the prince's mother is holding a ball for him that night to find his future bride, you know. Pretty much like Cinderella. So the new mission becomes to prepare Odette for this ball so he declares his love for her. Particularly, they center this preparation around dancing, which I guess makes it completely different to the last film where the ball preparation revolves around trying on dresses. I'm lying, these two films have the exact same final act. Rothbart steals the book, learns this curse-breaking secret, and disguises his daughter as Odette to go to the ball so the prince declares his love for her instead. I know I said it was unoriginal in the last film and gave it a pass, but there are new levels of unoriginal to be ripping off the film you literally made a year before. I'm sorry. Also, unfortunately, since it's all during the day, Odette's a swan, so she can't really go to the ball. No, that's exactly what she does. And you'd think it's going to be difficult to get in, but actually, no, look at that. The door is right open. Oh, no, Rothbart closed the door. But don't worry, it's a big palace. There are lots of doors. Ah, you got an easy way in this time. I don't know what you're waiting for, though. I'm just going. I mean, every second oh, I shut that one too. What is this luck? So, because of that lack of urgency, the prince proposes to fake Odette. Yeah, proposes. What is with these films and rushing weddings between people who don't even know each other? Are we sure they're sending good messages to the young audiences watching them? I mean, painting men like this feels irresponsible, to be honest. I get this is a separate, perfect world, but you're giving us too much credit to think we could be like this. And would anyone even want to be with someone like this anyway? If someone was this nice, you'd think they have an ulterior motive, and we're living in a broken world, aren't we? Wow. Sorry, I'm detouring in an already too long video. You see, with this proposal, the power of the crystal breaks. Rothbart takes the crown off Odette's motionless body, but the prince comes down, and after something happens here, I'm not really sure what, but there's something going on, yeah. And the rest of the enchanted forest people manage to save her, and the film ends with a chase scene between Rothbart and this unicorn carriage, which flies now? Sure. They fly now? Oh, that's not the original. It's close, though. And once they finally reach the enchanted forest, Rothbart strikes them down once and for all in one fell swoop, but oh, actually, that was the act of true love, and now everything's fine. Rothbart, something happened to him, and they all lived happily ever after. And upon hearing all that, the girl, quite like me, wants to get out of this situation she's found herself in. She gets her way. I, on the other hand, have just spent 6 hours filming this video and can't even fathom how long it's going to take to edit, and I'm probably going to make more Barbie videos in the future, so make sure to show this like button as much love as you did last time, because that is now my 9th most liked video ever, and you did that within a month. Where's this energy for my other videos? But particularly this video. Leave a like. And yeah, special thank you to Yuhan Chase, Christina Franzi, Jacob Maddie, Natasha Nick, Peter Zach, Rachel Jordan, Liam Jaden, Rebecca Tabitha, Veronica Victoria, Will, Carter Amon, another Jacob, Jonathan Ben, and Amanda for supporting me on Patreon. If you also want to check out my Patreon, you can in the link in the description down below. Also, huge thank you to Kate for helping me film this video. She is obviously the real world's leading expert on the Barbie movies, even though now if you search it up, my video is going to come up first, and that was kind of the whole point, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. I don't want to out her like this, but she commented on my last video and I went on her channel. She's been subscribed to me for 4 years. She is a true Gorm fan member, and if you're a true Gorm fan member, you'll go subscribe to her channel because, well, she's doing great videos over there, and I guess you'll see for yourself when you go subscribe. You can also check out my channel. You can subscribe. I'm assuming you're already subscribed if you come this far, but if you're not, you can subscribe to me and watch another video and check out my Patreon. And that's all. Thanks for watching.